The Michigan Wolverines, ranked 14th with a 1-0 record, travel to Norman, Oklahoma to take on the 18th ranked, also 1-0 Oklahoma Sooners. The Sooners are currently 5.5, 6.5 point favorites, depending on where you look. Ticket prices are very high. It's a big game for Oklahoma, a huge game for Michigan. It's honestly, I think, the best and most exciting game of week 2. I don't know too much about these teams, and I think that's very reasonable and understandable. They both played the equivalent of cupcakes. They were both 3+ touchdown favorites. Michigan didn't cover against New Mexico. New Mexico stayed in with them a bit, and we'll talk about that here. As for Oklahoma, they covered against Eastern Illinois, but they didn't exactly have a great game either. I think that both of these teams know how important this game is. It's why Michigan didn't suspend Sharon Moore for this game, but instead suspended him for weeks 3 and 4. I know that this is a huge must-have win for Brent Venables and his staff at Oklahoma, and I can't wait to see how this game unfolds. I think these teams, and ESPN's FPI would agree with me, are pretty evenly matched. Michigan is only power rated about 2 points ahead of Oklahoma right now per ESPN's FPI. And right now, the Sooners, per that metric, are given a 53.5% chance to win. So FPI thinks this game will be closer than at least the sports books are pegging the line at. We'll see whether or not the books think this game is going to be closer or maybe more of a distant Oklahoma victory, but Oklahoma right now favored. At kickoff, the weather's supposed to be about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 9 miles per hour, just around there. Again, kickoff at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit will be calling this game. I cannot express how excited I am here. I really can't. Both quarterbacks looked very impressive in week 1. I watched bits and pieces of Oklahoma, Eastern Illinois, and John Mateer is throwing it all across the field. He has zip on his throws. He can layer his throws, throw over defenders, find soft spots in between the zone. Keontez Lewis looked really good. Oklahoma looked pretty suspect at running the ball. I don't think that offensive line is quite fixed. They also had Jaden Ott out. I don't know exactly if he is injured or if they rested him for that game. There hasn't been a lot of reporting around that situation, but I'm just going to give Oklahoma benefit of the doubt and think that they are going to play him if they can. If they cannot, I think that they were hiding some things for this game for sure. Michigan, it's kind of the same deal. Underwood didn't look quite as experienced as Mateer. I don't think he had quite the same connection with his receivers either, but Underwood looked phenomenal. He looked better than Arch Manning did, for example. I've made that comparison a ton because Manning was viewed as preseason elite QB, just wasn't that right out of the gate, irrespective of what Ohio State threw at him versus what New Mexico threw at Underwood, and those are very two different defenses. Obviously, Patricia's and Ohio State's much better. I thought that when he had open receivers and when he wasn't getting pressured, Underwood looked better than Arch Manning. Mateer did too, obviously. So a great week for both quarterbacks. Michigan, I was concerned a little bit with their penalties, with their secondary play, with their offensive line at times. I thought the unit was more consistent than it was at the start of last year, but that's not saying much. It did not start off strongly last year. The D-line looks as if it's reloaded. Barham from the linebacker core, their best linebacker, will be out for the first half. But I think that Michigan's concerns on defense have less to do with linebacker and D-line in this matchup than they do at defensive back, and we can get into that right here. So I want to bring up some information about these teams and how they function, their dominance metrics, just how good these teams are. Now, for Oklahoma, they played an FCS team, so I don't quite have the points per play margin, points per play offense and defense on them. So I'm using 2024 numbers. Keep that in mind. It's not like we're using both 2025 numbers here. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be a question that we'd be picking Michigan to win by 70 points. But I just wanted to lay that out there for Oklahoma. We're using 2024 numbers outside of FPI and obviously the X factors, because those aren't just raw data. That's my own opinion, are pegged based on this current Oklahoma roster. Michigan right now has a points per play margin of 0.305. And that really shows that while Michigan didn't play super well, the fact they had that much of a points per play margin, 0.305, which means for every one of their plays, they scored 0.305 more points per one of their plays compared to one of New Mexico's plays, shows they were the better team. And I think showed they had a pretty, sound performance against New Mexico. I'm not going to say great or even pretty good, but I think Michigan is a better team than last year, and I thought the game against New Mexico pretty much bore that out. Their offense, 0.523 points per play gained, is pretty impressive compared to where they were last year. The defense only allowing 0.218. Suspect, but we saw some other top defenses that because of how much they rotated, and Michigan did the same thing, they allowed some points, and New Mexico was pulling out all the strings to get points. For Oklahoma, I'm not even going to bother really going over those numbers because they're up there on the screen. I've told you it's 2024. Last year's offense was pretty bad. They only scored 0.308 points per play. This offense, I can tell you right now, is different. I mean, they didn't dominate Illinois State. At one point, it was 21-3 in the third quarter, and I can tell this Oklahoma offense has some inconsistency, just like Michigan's does. These teams, I believe, are very similar, but Mateer really impressed me. The speed, you can see that he's not green, that he's veteran, he's comfortable in this system, he's comfortable with his receivers. That's why he threw the one pick, because he trusted his receiver to make a play, and it just didn't happen that way. And he had some other bombs all across the field that looked like NFL throws with elite ball placement, if I'm being honest. Oklahoma's defense, I will say, last season with that schedule only allowing 0.335 points per play was pretty impressive. And I think you're going to see that out of this defense this year as well. They returned several key contributors who we're going to talk about in relationship to the X factors. I've already discussed for power ratings, Michigan with a 12.1 FPI rating, it's 20th. Oklahoma with a 10.5 FPI rating, that's 22nd. Both dropped from where they were in the preseason, and that's because they didn't score a ton of points on their opponents. They didn't win or blow them out, and I think a huge part of that is because, yes, they're flawed, but they're also preparing big time for this game. This game means a lot for both teams. I think for Oklahoma here, it's a matter of survival and potentially getting to the playoffs. If you're Michigan here, there is some of that, but I think it's more so if you win this game, you get a strong non-conference game, and Oklahoma could be the second and is probably at least the third best team they're going to play on the schedule by preseason projections. I think both John Mateer and Bryce Underwood are X factors in this matchup. I also believe that for Michigan, they have X factors at running back. Haynes looked super athletic, as he did at Alabama. And while Jordan Marshall had some struggles, I think that that's still a pretty good 1-2 punch there. Both defensive lines, for Michigan, Rayshon Benny, Trey Williams, Damon Payne, Trey Pierce, and no Etta. You're also talking about the outside linebackers, edges, Derek Moore, TJ Guy, Dominic Nichols, Jimmy Rolder. Nate Marshall got some playing time and looked very good, true freshman for them. Oklahoma, it's the same thing. Marvin Jones Jr. transferred in from Florida State. Dominic Williams, Grayson Holton, R. Mason Thomas. You're talking about David Stone, Jaden Jackson. I love their defensive tackle core. Absolutely love it. Really, both of these teams' entire defenses, I think, are X factors here. I want to focus, though, on the Oklahoma defensive back core. I think it's better than Michigan's. Peyton Bowen, Jacoby Johnson, Robert Spears-Jennings, Gentry Williams, Jaden Hardy. It's a really good secondary. Both have some true freshmen in that two deep. I think Michigan's is really good too. Just from a preseason angle, thought Oklahoma's was better, and we're only one game through, and I didn't see enough in either game to really change my opinion on these two teams by that much. Mateer maybe looked a little bit better than I thought he would, but then again, it's an FCS team. Underwood also looked better than I expected, but then again, It's New Mexico, and Michigan did upgrade a little bit at wide receiver, and they have done well developing and recruiting at tight end. So realistically, how bad were those quarterbacks going to be against the opponents they played? It's going to be very different when Mateer plays against Michigan's defense and when Underwood plays against Oklahoma's defense, and I'm very excited for that matchup. Some storylines for this game. How does the offense fare versus Venables? It's a key question for Michigan. They're going to be on the road against a defensive genius, one of the best defensive minds in all of the country. How do they handle that? Do they get freaked out? Are they anxious? Are they rushed? Or do they stay composed, and do they methodically try to move the ball? For Oklahoma, where's the rushing offense? Because if Ott isn't playing, I don't like their offensive line, running backs, and even quarterback in Mateer going up against this Michigan front. I don't like that in the same way that I don't like Michigan's offense in general, but especially probably that pass offense against Oklahoma's defense. Those are some questions, and keys to the game would be soundness, trench play, splash plays, special teams, and how does Michigan handle the road environment. Who blocks better? Who tackles better? Who tackles in the proper way? Not trying to, slam someone down with the shoulder, not arm tackling, but who comes in and gives the ball handler a big hug, not targeting either, and just tackles them straight to the ground with proper technique. And who blocks well? Who has the better footwork? Who has more power? Who wants it more? These are basic things that you look for in big matchups. For trench play, which D-line takes over? Which one opens up holes? We'll have to see there. Both of these D-lines, I think, should have matchup advantages against the opposing offensive lines. For splash plays, who can create big, game-breaking plays? Michigan, I think, can do that better than Oklahoma on the ground. Oklahoma can do that better through the air. We'll see what happens on Saturday. As for special teams, Michigan has Dominic Zvada. Oklahoma doesn't quite have anyone like that. For their special teams unit, they actually have a ton of transfers. All of their starters on special teams, outside of Ben Anderson, their long snapper, are incoming transfers. Tate Sandel is their kicker. He was 19 of 23, made 97.2% of his extra points from UTSA. So he should be a pretty good kicker. Don't quite know if he's Zvada, but the special teams matchup in this game, this top 20 game, is going to be one that could decide it, because both of these teams are more defensively led than offensively led. And I want to know if maybe this comes down to a kick or good field position in regards to the punter, pinning his punts inside the 20, not punting them in such a way they'll roll into the back of the end zone. What punt coverage unit is able to pin guys deep? Who has better kickoff coverage? I think that could matter in a game like this where, yes, the spread has gone in Oklahoma's direction, but it very well could be a close game, should be a lower scoring game. And then finally, the road environment. How does Michigan handle that? That is going to be something that could make this game close or even a Michigan win, or that could make it an Oklahoma win or a dominant Oklahoma win. I believe that Oklahoma has advantages through the air over Michigan, and that Michigan has advantages on the ground. I think that Michigan is more talented here by just a smidge, not much. The staffs, I would say, are equal. I think Venables is a better head coach than Sharon Moore, but Venables isn't exactly super proven in that commodity. I believe Michigan's special teams are superior. I like Michigan's D-line against Oklahoma's O-line more than OU's O-line against, or more than Michigan's O-line, or no, more than Oklahoma's D-line against Michigan's O-line. I think that Michigan has the trench advantage, but home field advantage when you have a true freshman starting for the first time, I think is huge. And Mateer, I think, has the air advantage here. I'm more comfortable with him and his receiver core going up against Michigan's secondary than I am Underwood and his receiver core, and pass blocking unit you can factor into. Michigan or Oklahoma, I don't know who has the better, or maybe we should say the worse pass blocking. That's going to be a key factor where I think early if you lean one way and pass blocking goes dramatically the other, you may want to follow the lead there. Even though I think both quarterbacks, especially Mateer, have the tools to be able to handle breakdowns there, especially if Michigan's pass blocking is being eaten alive very early, that could be a strong indicator that Michigan's going to win. I can at least see Mateer with some of the experience he has. If his pass blocking's getting eaten alive, I can see them kind of escaping that. But we'll see. Oklahoma, I think, is going to have more of an edge through the pass here. Michigan, more of an edge through the run, especially if Ott's hurt. Especially if Ott's hurt, Michigan will definitely win the rushing battle here. I do believe on an overall basis, recruiting rankings, it's undeniable. Just look at the team talent composite. Michigan's more talented there. Even factoring a little bit of development into this, I do like Michigan just a little bit more, but not enough to where I think that is going to overcome some of the advantages that I see Oklahoma having in this matchup. I already said it's just been 1 week. It's been 1 week of games, and I didn't see anything that really changed my perspective on this. And for a few months now, I've thought that Michigan going in here and winning would be their toughest task of possibly the year, outside of maybe USC on the road or Ohio State at home. And I think Michigan, when they play Ohio State and USC, will be better than who they are right now. I think they'll probably get better as the year goes on with the first-year OC, with some wide receiver transfers, with Underwood getting better the more repetitions he has, with some of the younger players they have on offense, and also the defense, getting some players back from potentially injury and the defensive line rotations that they have. Michigan's a pretty deep team. I like their depth more than Oklahoma. But right now, I think Oklahoma is in a better position than Michigan is. The home field advantage, I think as of right now, they have the better quarterback. They have a larger matchup edge through the air than I think Michigan does on the ground, at least. And I think that if I had to choose Venables or Moore to manage my team, I wouldn't want to choose either. But I would side with Venables if I had to over Moore. I would do that. I think Oklahoma wins. I think they're going to beat Michigan, but I do think Michigan covers that 6.5 line. I think that is too many points here. If we are going to overreact to New Mexico and say, geez, Michigan's, just as bad as they were last year when they looked much better against New Mexico than Fresno State, well, you should overreact to the fact that Oklahoma only ran for like 3.5 yards per carry against an FCS team. That's bad. They ran for 3.2 exactly. They did not have much success. And when it's through 3 quarters and you've only scored 21 points against an FCS team, I'd say that's just as bad, maybe worse than Michigan allowing 17 points to New Mexico. I think that Michigan's issues, based on what I saw, so a lot of the penalties and some of the turnover stuff, for example, the fumble from Andrew Marsh on the kickoff return, I think that's more fixable than maybe Oklahoma's rushing offense already having some severe issues against an FCS opponent. But as of right now, maybe I'll change my mind. This might be one of those games where I change my mind. I do have to go with Oklahoma here, but I do think Michigan will cover. I think it will be very close. It will be a balanced game. Won't be as low scoring as I thought in the summer because both of these quarterbacks really impressed me, and I think their defense does have some areas of vulnerability I perhaps didn't expect, but I'm picking Oklahoma here, home field advantage. I think they have the better head coach, better game manager at head coach right now, better quarterback, and their defense I think is more of a complete unit. Could be wrong there, but I think they have a better secondary. I think their linebackers in the first half will be better without Barham. They could be comparable in the second half. And Oklahoma, I don't like their D-line as much as Michigan's, but I like Venables as a defensive strategist more than I do Wink Martindale. So Oklahoma wins, Michigan covers. It's going to be very, very competitive. Make sure if you haven't already to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment your thoughts down below. We're live Sundays, Mondays, and Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern time usually. Sometimes not, but most of the time we are. Have a great day, a great Labor Day. Can't wait to watch TCU and North Carolina tonight. And we're going to do several more videos on this game as it is the game of the week and by far the biggest game of week 2.